It would have made no difference if Marise Payne or the Prime Minister were dispatched to the Solomon Islands to stop a security pact with Beijing because the deal was already done. That's the claim by Australia's former Pacific Islands Minister, Zed Seselja, who faced off with Marise Payne across a table. He says it remains to be seen whether we can trust the Solomons not to build a Chinese military base in our region. In the second part of his exclusive chat with Sky News, the former senator opens up about one of the most important foreign meetings in decades.
Anthony Albanese's attendance at the recent Pacific Islands Forum marked a milestone for the region, one the former Pacific Islands Development Minister Zed Seselja watched keenly after the pandemic cancelled 2 years of meetings.
I was sort of a cheerleader for Australia. I think it's good that the Australian government of whatever colour can have good relations.
Smiles aside, the Solomons has experts worried with the security pact now signed between its PM and Communist China. It leaked online in late March, a confidentiality clause intended to keep the deal a secret. The revelation rattled the coalition's election campaign.
Did the security pact surprise you?
Look, I was not aware of it until the time it got leaked, but certainly when it came out, it was something that was not welcome.
Zed Seselja flew to Honiara 17 days later as Labor attacked.
And you've got the Foreign Minister of Australia hiding under her desk with the phone pulled out, and they send some bloke called Zed. Who's Zed?
Look, I would say that I don't think it would have made a shred of difference. If Marise had been on the plane or I was on the plane going there, I think that the deal was done.
Should we have sent the PM?
No, I don't think so, and certainly at the height of an election campaign, I think the Prime Minister going over, and it does have different implications, obviously, particularly if the decision is the same. Obviously, that has different implications.
But if this is all national security, I mean, this is big-ticket stuff.
Sure, but again, I don't think it would have made any difference.
The decision to tighten ties with China was harder to swallow, considering Australia has spent billions in the country and dispatched forces to quell riots in November.
I mean, obviously it was a very challenging discussion, you talked about me being a relatively frank guy, and I am. I don't know whether I would have been a good diplomat if I'd gone down another career, but certainly being frank in these discussions is important. I mean,
what do you say when you're being frank to a foreign leader and you're looking at him over the table and you're thinking, you're about to do us over, or potentially about to do us over?
I was putting to the Prime Minister that we had boots on the ground and we'd responded within 12 hours. We had done everything that a friend and a neighbour would do in difficult circumstances for the Solomon Islands. And so going down this path of signing this agreement with China, which I don't think has broad support in the region, certainly is not supported by Australia, was not an act that was, responsive to just how much Australia had responded and supported the Solomon Islands in so many ways.
Put it in words perhaps you're too nice to say. You're thinking you're screwing us.
A little bit.
Australia remains by far the biggest donor to the region.
Did he know you were angry?
Well, I think he would have gotten a very clear message from me as to how the Australian government felt. I don't think he would have been in any. I think he may have used language. I wouldn't go into all the detailed language, but I think after I delivered my opening spiel, I think he may have used language of I haven't heard it quite said in such a direct way.
How do you swear at a foreign leader?
I didn't swear. You've got to be highly professional in these discussions.
The Solomons leader insists there will be no Chinese base because it would make his country a target. It would also become the greatest strategic threat to Australia since 1945, when more than 10,000 Allied lives were lost liberating the islands in World War II.
Can we trust Prime Minister Sogavare's commitment that there won't be a Chinese base?
Well, again, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? He's made those assurances. He made those assurances when we were in government. He made those assurances.
What's your gut instinct? I mean, you've stared at him in the eyes, you've looked at him across the table, you've had others around the table with you. Do you reckon you can trust him?
Well, I think it was Ronald Reagan, wasn't it, who said trust and then verify.
Questions are now likely to be asked about whether strings should be attached to our aid and assistance, a kind of quid pro quo.
So it's not necessarily about taking a sort of a punitive approach, but having those discussions as a family. If the only message they get, if genuinely the message is you can sort of have your cake and eat it too, you can get ever increasing amounts of aid and support from the Australian government, and you can do a deal with China which might be beneficial to you or your government or individuals in your government, depending on how it plays out, then that's going to be a pretty concerning message as we look to other parts of the region as to what they'll take from that.
Do you think we're seeing a more interventionist China, a more aggressive China, or a more cunning China?
I think all three.
He isn't, though, convinced we will see a Chinese military base on our doorstep, although he admits the recent Telstra acquisition of Digicel, a Pacific Islands telecommunications company, at a cost of $2 billion to taxpayers, is about keeping the superpower out, something the Albanese government isn't prepared to state.
It's basically about keeping China out of telecommunications in the Pacific, isn't it?
Well, certainly it's about ensuring that strategic assets like Digicel, I think remain in preferably in the private sector's hands, but certainly can't in any way be used in a way that would be detrimental to our interests.
With the world more conflicted, the former minister concedes briefings from our security agencies took him back at times.
Yeah, look, when you see the inside of how everything works, and we've got great intelligence agencies, of course, and there's a lot going on in the world.
Learning of the dangers lapping at our doorstep. Jonathan Lee, Sky News.